Hello, Booknerds. Welcome to the Booknerds podcast. We are kicking off the financial year with a very relevant book. First of all, welcome to the podcast, Anindya and Anshuman. Thank you so much for taking out time for this one.
Thank you, Roshan. Thank you, Rohan, for inviting us.
Yes, thank you,
Okay,
Rohan. Thank you for
the
inviting us.
book we are going to talk about is, and Anindya just told me that this book was also mentioned by my sister recently on the floor of the parliament. Is that right, Anindya? Am I right?
Delhi Assembly, not Parliament. Delhi
Or in
Assembly.
the
He was presenting Delhi
SMT,
budget.
obviously,
Yeah.
yeah. The book is called Countdown. Can India rebound from the meltdown of the century? A very important book. I suppose my first impression is that everybody should read it because we shouldn't forget what has happened and how we need to come out of it. It could be you could be a business owner or not. You could be anybody, but it will affect you. The economy will affect you. So you need to read this book and let us know how you liked it. So first of all, for those of you who don't know about the authors, let me tell you a little bit. So Anshuman Tiwari is editor of Money 9 TV9 network. He's a highly acclaimed economic commentator, author, policy analyst, and an award-winning journalist. His show Arthat at the London Top is the top-ranking weekly program on concurrent economy. Those of you who have followed the London Top would know him, of course. I don't need to introduce him again. He's now, his content is now available at Money 9. Anindya Sengupta is a public policy analyst and a student at economic history. He blogs at thetimeriver.blogspot.com and bazaarnomics.blogspot.com. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for writing this because a very unique kind of start to the book, I must say. When I started reading the book, I thought it would be very academic. And that's something, I was worried about because sometimes it doesn't reach out to the mainstream. So first, I would like to go to Anindya. Uh, what did you have trepidations that it might become more academic rather than sort of reaching out to the masses, which is required because this issue, economy, and the COVID crisis, the pandemic, has affected everyone.
Right. Rohan, thanks very much for inviting us, first of all. And Booknerds, I must say that it's a very unique startup. Me and Anshuman, we keep on interacting with startups, on a very regular basis. We know a lot of startups, but yours is a very unique startup. And I wish you guys all the success. Talking about this book, our primary purpose was to connect and reach out to a wider audience. So you will see, you can dispute whatever, we are trying to argue in the book. But, our most unique proposition in this book is to connect with the people. That's why we have presented it in a form which I'm sure, on Indian economy, at least, we haven't come across a book like this. From first till almost the last, it's basically stories of characters and real life situations through which we try to tell you the problem. Why? Because economy, whether you have studied economics, whether you are interested to read, write, whatever, irrespective of your profession, irrespective of your status, etc., economy affects your pocket. That's right. That's very simple for all of us.
Right.
So we must know what actually affects us. We must be able to connect the dots. Unless you are able to do that, you cannot take care of your household, you cannot take care of your business, you cannot do your future economic planning. And both the macroeconomics of this country and your personal economy, they're very intimately connected. Something which we may not realize every day. But the moment you are going to pay, petrol, you're going to, fill petrol in your tank, whether you're riding a bike or you're driving a high-end car, it pinches you, right? When the petrol prices go up. Why petrol prices go up so much? And this is not an academic discussion. Just this is something which affects basically our roti roji. So
Yeah.
that's why we must know this, and that is the primary purpose why we have presented this book in this form. So I think that presentation has been very important in our mind, and that's why we have written this book, and particularly in this format.
Yeah, I would talk more about the collab, of course.
Yeah.
Anshumanji, another thing that Anindya talked about the stories. The book started with talking about these characters, Govind, Rohan, Khanduja, and giving perspective. So this choice, please tell us a little bit more about this. Why you went for this choice rather than sort of a narrative much different to this, more non-fiction sort of?
Rohan, there are two concepts for when we are starting that. First, that I have traveled extensively during the COVID first and second wave, being an editor and journalist. So I've gone to the deepest of hinterland, which I normally used to travel. And during the COVID, I had a privilege to travel with a special pass, being an editor. So I have took a lot of risk to meeting the people who are actually affected. So there are a lot of characters which you find there. They somehow resemble the real life characters. Those I
Right.
meet, like Govind I met, Rohan I met,
Yeah.
and these stories are stories of our neighborhood, the stories of in and around our families. So the first part is that why these characters been chosen, because those characters actually driven me to write this book, because
Okay.
their stories are the real Indian stories.
Yeah.
They are the real Indian economy. They are the 60-70% of India's GDP. Their stories is not the stories, may not be stories of Ambani, Kotak, and Adani, but they are the real Indian economy. So the one part is that. Second important part, the whole narrative and the whole structure of the book has been driven by to counter a notion which is generally in the economic narrative building and economic writing is there, that economics is something very secluded, very specialized field. There's a kind of aristocracy around it, that no, you just can't understand economy because this is not
Agree.
your cup of tea. This is not your cup
Yeah.
of tea. Even the politician, I meet chief ministers. He has mentioned Manish Sisodia before doing the budget. He called me that your book is wonderful. I would like to take a lot of data out of it, but you'll have to explain me
Yeah.
that how can I use it like that. So
Yeah.
there is a general sense of aristocracy and high-handedness that no, you cannot understand economy. You can understand poetry. You can
Right.
understand movies. You can
Uh,
understand polarizing politics. You can
yeah.
understand everything, but you just cannot understand economy. So I
Right.
see there is a design behind it. Don't
Yeah.
let people understand how finance work, and don't let people understand how governance works.
Yeah.
So there's a design behind it, because if
Right.
you don't let them understand how the finances work, and if you want to keep them away from that, you they'll be completely illiterate. So you will find educated financial illiterate around everywhere. They might be
Oh yes.
professors, yeah,
Yeah.
there might be professors, there might
Yeah.
be scientists, there might be top politicians, but they're
Yeah.
financially illiterate, or they
Yeah.
fear from the
Yeah.
financial and economic policies. So there's a one notion which has driven me, and that's the reason which why wrote this book, and we have mentioned in the line, you will not find a good quality Indian reforms critique in last 25 years in India, because no one who was actually the part of the Indian reform process has
Right.
not written the right kind of critique, because they were in a way involved into the reform process during last
Uh,
25 years. All the great economists, all the finance ministers, all the finance secretaries, you just drop the name, they will be part and parcel of those reforms, where
yeah.
partially they have succeeded, partially they have
Yeah.
failed.
Yeah.
So these two things which have driven him, one, that to connect the dots, so you can understand, you must have been gone through not the Govind but Gopal, but you must be knowing a taxi driver.
Yeah.
If you talk to him, he can tell you his story, because his story would be the Govind's story. You may be looking for a middle class person who came from a smaller town and suddenly become an IT expert, and then grown up and become a startup entrepreneur. These stories are everywhere. So these are
Yeah.
two top ideas which
Yeah.
have driven us to write this book. And thirdly, put connect those dots
Yeah.
which we normally feel, but we don't have data to support our notion and understanding. That's why
Right.
India is a 500 rupees economy. Why the
Yeah.
majority of the people are struggling for only 500 rupees daily wages? What is the
Yeah.
data behind it? Why it is happening? There are
Yeah.
three important aspects which have actually driven us to write this.
Yeah. Anshumanji, you say three important aspects. I was like taken aback by how many things you have touched. I have so many notes. I mean, you have touched upon. I mean, there is a major issue. I mean, Booknerds is based out of Dehradun, and one of the biggest and largest issues is migration, right? Which has kind of, I mean, it has been a major issue since 2020 also. Migration and reverse migration. That's something which is close to my heart, and I really feel for it because Uttarakhand suffers from it a lot. So tell us a little bit about migration. What is the effect of it? Although I wanted to go to it a little bit later, but this is such a big issue because nobody wants to stay in a small state like Uttarakhand. People just want to go out, and all of a sudden, when the pandemic hit, obviously it is core to the book also. The crisis that we were like multiple crises because it happened in 2020 and 2021. So I would love to know more about that, about migration and how does it fit in to the entire narrative.
Anand would like to say
Anindya,
something?
yeah, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anand, you can.
So basically, you see, when we say that Govind's story is India's story,
Yeah.
if you see India's economic reform story of last 25 years is basically a story of gigantic migration pattern, right?
Yeah.
So from all over the country, all over hinterland, small towns, villages, people migrated to Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and few Pune, these kind of places, and some of the clusters. You see, most of India's economic production as production value addition, whatever you say,
Yeah.
that comes from a handful, maybe 20, 25 clusters, right? And you said Uttarakhand, not only Uttarakhand. If you just draw a line like this, dividing India into eastern and west, the entire migration is from northeast towards west because that's
Right.
where production was taking place, right? And people, why people migrate? Because there's a very serious economic logic. That's a
Yeah.
story of both failure and success. Success at individual level and failure at a state level, at governance level. Why people cannot find job at their hometown, why they cannot grow a small industry in their hometown or village, because there's no infrastructure, because there's no financing, because there's no market access and those things. So the migration, and there's a book called India Moving by Mr. Chinmay Tumbe, and that book summarizes it so well. The entire India story is basically migration story, and reverse migration tells us another sad story. Jobs are there where people are aging, and where young population is there, there's no job, there's no economic this thing, and this we need to address, because another very fundamental feature of this book, that will India be able to grow its reaches, will India be able to become rich before it grows old? Because very soon, quite a few states are already graying in the sense that there are more older people than more productive age people, and other states will also follow. So India is going to go it old before becoming rich. So when that happens, then very few people who are earning, they need to support a much larger population who are not earning, which is a catastrophe for India, because people are not rich here. So if one son needs to support, four set of parents and in-laws, etc., then it would be son or daughter, whatever. So it would be really difficult for India. So this migration story is a story of success at individual level. Whether Rohan or Govind, they make money because they come to cities, they come to clusters, but at the same time, it talks about governance failure. So this migration is very important. And at the same time, India's growth story is more of migration story. So we need to understand this. And there are many aspects of it, but it also summarizes our both problem, growth, opportunities, everything together.
Yeah.
Ron, I would like to put two data to what Anand said. One important part is that we must understand that India's economic geography is very lopsided, very unbalanced economic geography. We are the country there are only 30-35 clusters who add almost 70% to the India's GDP and 80-85% jobs in that. That you can even see from naked eyes. You don't require to be an economist to
Right.
understand this economic geography. India's economic geography is centralized around certain clusters which are there. That there are reason behind them, there is history behind them, but this is one important part is that. So the first part of the India's growth story was actually created by a lot of people who have left their hometowns and settled into the areas, and that's the way India's new city culture and urban culture has grown. India has not built the cities, but the cities have grown after economic liberalization. This was a very positive factor because I'll quote a data here. Economic Survey in 2017 told that from 2011 to 2016, almost 9 million people have migrated.
Wow.
90 lakh people have migrated, and if you take they're sending 1,000 rupees back to
Yeah.
their villages, the
Yeah.
transfer is somewhere 2% of the GDP. And this is
Wow.
the reason when you read the book, you find the chapter where Bechelal son Govind, who is driving a taxi, is actually sending money back to the villages. And this is what
Hmm.
Uttarakhand is called money order economy, because the
Huh.
people wait for money order to come from the urban areas. And this has changed the overall income structure on the rural area. Now where
Hmm.
we are coming out of the COVID, you will find that the
Yeah.
rural income, out of the overall rural income, only 40% rural income is coming from the agricultural activities, 60%
Yeah.
income is non-agricultural activities. So India's rural economy is predominantly an urbanized economy, either
Yeah.
supported by the jobs in urban areas. So person
Yeah.
is sleeping in the village but working in a nearby town, or the money has been sent by someone who's living in the urban areas and sending it back to the rural areas. So this is what the migration story is, that this has created a new consumer class. Before 2016, I'll say this crisis started from the demonetization and GST. This has created a new rural middle class also. India has got a very interesting phenomenon of rural middle class, which has started growing. The reason was that money was coming from the cities. This all equilibrium has been completely disturbed during the back-to-back disruptions, and finally ended when we have started seeing people are going back to reverse migration. And here I'll last point I will add that uh, I always say that you don't need to see CMI data, you don't need to see government data, you don't need to see even NSSO data. Just every month you check the Manrega data. Till the Manrega jobs demand is rising, there is no growth in the urban economies. Still, you will see people are struggling to get even 35 days of the job in a year. 100%, 110% job budgets utilization is taking place in rural area, and this is not at all a happy story. Manrega is actually the memorial of the failure of urban job market. The more people will come to the, and how much money they're getting at 180 rupees, 200 rupees. Now government has increased 5 to 10 rupees recently last week. So still they are getting 210 rupees or something. So this is what the whole migration story. So we try to encapsulate it into understanding from the rural economy and urban economy, where they both connect and come together.
Great. I wanted to take some questions because people are asking questions, and it would be great. Although I wanted to go at the end, perhaps they'll have more questions. So let's take a few questions and then we'll go back to our conversation. There's one which I thought could be relevant here. I think Achal is asking, this virus came and hit Rohan's world like a bolt from the blue. The story of Rohan is like any other individual who was on the paddle of success but came falling after the pandemic hit. So what is your expression for this particular story? Basically, I think she's talking about how Rohan was dependent on his earnings and how well he was doing, and he had multiple EMIs. So can you take this question perhaps?
Yeah. So this is a story of all of us, isn't it? I mean, how many friends do you have who have got into IT, some banking, some good job and all that? And the very first thing you do is that you buy a big house or a car and all that. You run multiple EMIs. What is the largest story behind it? Those Indians were say between 30 and say late 40s in their age group. They haven't seen anything going down basically. The day middle class Indians I'm talking about. The day they are out of good engineering college, good college, MBA courses, they get into a job. They change their job very frequently, get another hike. Every year they get hike, etc. This is for the first time since mid or late 1990s. We have seen things crashing down. And this is something which we were not prepared for. And, just before the show, you and me were talking about financial literacy. That's one part of it, how to take care of your finances. But you plan for your career, you plan for your, dreams, aspirations. You do not plan for the nation's economy. Things had happened before this also. 2008, there was a great global financial crisis. But India was insulated from it. It was a tribute to the policymakers of that time. But this is a both global and local crisis have come together and spoiled, completely spoiled the dreams of many Rohans. If you see people around us, how many people, those who were in very well-paid jobs, they had to face 30% salary cut, 50% salary cuts, no salary for some airlines employees for months, some hotel employees and all that. We have seen all this around us.
And teaching, teaching a major sector.
Totally exploited. Yeah, they had to shift online immediately and all that. They worked without any salary and all these things. Rohan is just not one example. We have, every one of us has seen multiple Rohans around us. But we must understand why this has happened. The other part of this story is very important. You see abroad, you see in most other countries, we all have friends, cousins, etc. in USA, in UK, in European countries, everywhere. Their government has actually stepped in and protected individuals from the fallout of it. Their GDPs actually have shrank, but individual household incomes have been protected through some cash subsidy somewhere, through some income subsidy, salary protection, etc., etc. So what has happened is that the economy has taken a hit but individuals have been more or less protected, right? What has happened in India that we did not get any such protection from the government.
Right.
Because of that, the economy has suffered, but individuals have suffered more. So it's not enough to look at the GDP. Look at people like Rohan around us. Look at the guy who, as a teacher, who as a private engineering college teacher, or who IT fortunately has picked up, but in other hospitality sector everywhere else, where they have lost jobs, they had to settle for much lesser pay, etc. So these are the stories why this has happened. Here again, the personal versus macroeconomic connect. Because the government could not protect us, protect our income, household savings, etc. So we ended up paying more than the economy. As individuals, we ended up paying more. Why government could not support us? Again, this is where we want to connect the dots and tell you. Because the government was so bankrupt, and this is not any particular government, this is not any particular political party. The way our economy has been managed over last several years, last decade or so, that our government simply did not have resources to protect individuals, individual income families. This is why stories like Rohan has happened. And these stories did not happen in Western countries, did not happen in large parts of the world, even though the pandemic was global, the lockdown was global, and the whole disruption, economic disruption, was global in nature. So this is something where our Rohan story is really important.
Yeah. So would you like to add to this one?
Yeah, Rohan, just what Anindya said, I would like to just connect it that as we connect the dot, you can connect this whole dot with the economy, which you can feel around you. See, India's growth post 2005 is majoritarily the growth of services sector. And out of them, the 70-80% services are context-based services. All these Rohan stories or a startup story or a retail story or an airlines story or hotel stories are basically context-based services story. India has not grown as a manufacturing story, but as a services story. And this has created a very fast up-moving class where people have started, there was a shortage of the people in the fast-moving services. Jobs have changed and people have started earning very good. India has never expected that the fundamental of their economic growth stories were the context-based services, and they'll suddenly get a huge hit from the COVID. All the context-based services environment is destroyed completely in India. Rohan was on the fulcrum of that context-based services. He was doing topmost thing, auditing five-star hotels, and this is a real life story. This is a real life story. Auditing five-star hotels and top-class malls for an American company, and suddenly company went bankrupt. And the things have collapsed, and this has these kind of services has created a completely chain of different services around us. When things have changed, and biggest hit came to the services economy in India, and that's the reason we have seen job shortages and shrinkage and GDP loss. Here, Indian governments could not understand the overall structure of Indian economy. They still thought that India is an agrarian economy, India is an industrial economy. So when you see that the whole, what Anindya mentioned, when government is starting supporting the people who have hit by the COVID, they are already targeted people who were the least hit actually. They were living in the villages. They have got Manrega. The people who have suffered, mostly the middle class people who are working in shopping mall, who were part of the startup system, who are working in the hotel, they have decided, and they have created a snowball unemployment because these 40-45 lakh people who are registered with the EPFO gives job to 5 people around their own vicinities. So I calculate it like that: if someone is earning 70,000-80,000 rupees, he is supporting three, four families. Maybe a plumber he is supporting, maybe a maid he is supporting, maybe a doctor, nearby doctor he is supporting. So this the middle of the mid economy, which was actually job generator, who was by his own expenses and consumption. There are a lot of generations coming. This whole big cycle and big structure has collapsed, and this is the reason you are seeing that the industries have started functioning back. Pre-COVID production levels have gone, but unemployment has not came down. It's still 9%, 8%. The reason is that this context-based service phenomena will take a lot of time to come back. And by the time disruptions have started coming, so people have started working from home, technology has came up, and when the crisis comes, there are solutions starts coming, and solutions are always shorter on the employment, and then whole phenomena has started changing now.
Actually, sir, it is so. I was talking to someone in a huge startup, huge edtech startup, I would not name the startup, but what is happening is that once now we are going towards like post-pandemic world. I hope so, at least. So what they are doing now is they are forcing people to come back into sort of work, and whomsoever can't displace themselves again from their home city and come to a big city, now they are firing, and there is no
Yeah.
regulation in this. And the same happened when the government asked the businesses not to fire people. There was no regulation, and there was mass firing over emails, if you remember. And you must be aware about everything. I mean, I don't have to state it. What do we do about this? There is no regulation for businesses. They can do anything and everything. Also, there's a question similar to what I'm asking you by Devika. She's asking, even before COVID-19 struck, the Indian economy was already in the clutch of a deep recession. Could you please shed some light on this? Anindya, would you like to?
Yeah. So Rohan, let me tackle the first part first.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, the main theme of our book. What do we do about employment? Manrega, some subsidy here and there. All this is dole economy. You can give out doles. You can subsidize people only to a certain extent.
Yeah.
We all, what you and me like. We would like all our 130 crore people also in this country to do that. They must be able to earn their own money, and they should be happy and proud to do that. They should not be forced to live on doles of somebody or some government, etc.
Yeah.
So how do you generate that employment? This is the main point of Indian economy, main crisis, and this is what this book is about. Unless you have employment, unless you have jobs, you cannot solve this crisis by doing something superficial here and there, by giving 500 rupees here, by giving some subsidy there. You cannot sort out this crisis. Manrega is what? When you cannot get jobs, you give some support. Now Manrega has become mainstay. You imagine, I mean, something which was supposed to give you the last resort support, that has become the mainstay. So how pathetic is the situation? So what we must do, regulating business is one part. And I'll just mention that also. But before that, let me tell you that first and foremost, all government policies, in our opinion, should be tailored towards employment. And this is something Delhi Finance Minister also mentioned, that, we propose something called employment audit. You launch a Swachh Bharat mission. In that Swachh Bharat mission, you can create actually thousands of jobs, from high-end jobs to very low-end jobs. You can create lots of jobs. So when India is so starved of jobs, whenever you are spending money on a large scale on any project, that should be employment oriented. You must see as an outcome that how many jobs you are creating. So that's first and foremost from policy angle. Second, you kept a segment, I do not know whether we'll be able to go there, on super monopolies, etc.
Oh, yes, yes.
Business cannot be controlled as we used to do pre-1991. Should not be also. What we should have is a good regulated environment. What does that regulation basically mean? That regulation means fair competition. That no single company or a few companies should not be allowed to dominate. What happens? The example we gave, you would remember, but some 20-year-old kid may not remember that how many in every circle, telecom circle, we used to have 3, 4, 5 operators. Like,
Yes.
if you didn't have X, you could go to Y. In fact, it used to be a big debate that when that number portability will come from X to Y, we can go with our own number and all that. Now what has come to it? It has come to this, that entire India, you are basically left with 2 operators, right?
Yes.
So what happens when the number of companies come down, when basically competition dies out in some way or other, then you have massive job losses, massive. I mean, when you had 5 companies in every circle, then you had so many jobs in telecom. Suddenly, those jobs are completely gone. So unless you have competition, you cannot protect jobs also. So when you talk about competition, business regulation, don't think about 2 or 3 super rich people, how they are running their businesses. Basically, people are losing their jobs. So that's very important.
So
I'll take,
yeah.
I'll take
sir.
that question which Devyani has asked about
Yes.
that pre-COVID recession.
Yes.
I won't say that was a deep recession, but I'll say definitely that was a structural slowdown, which has to come anyways. When you're in a high growth economy, you'll have to go into the slowdown. A lot of organic and inorganic factors take place there. But that
Yeah.
slowdown was typical Indian slowdown. Where from 2013 onwards, we have seen a very, very interesting phenomena in India, which was not comparable to any other economy in the world. It's called three-speed economy. There was a
Okay.
one part of the economy was growing rapidly fast. Second level of the economy was, when I say now first part of the economy means startups, hotels, aviation, and upmarket high value premium products. There was a flurry of new shopping malls, flurry of international brands were there. Those were the days when Marks and Spencer came to India. Those were days when we started seeing a lot of hotel chains coming to the India. That time was that the top of the economy was growing at the rate of 7 to 8%. Middle
Right.
was crumbling. Middle was steel. Middle was real estate. Middle was cement. Middle was all the infrastructure industries. Those who have already struggling with the NPAs, which they have borrowed earlier, and they were twin balance sheet problems, which technically, if the people know that word has came a lot in the parlance during 12, 15, 16, 2012, 15, 16. So they were struggling for 12, 15, the second part. And the third part of the economy, those were the aspirational people who were trying to go into the second level and then finally to the third level in some economies. This was the phenomena when we have got first disruption of
Yeah.
demonetization, which has hit India. India has survived and bounced back. Then we have seen the second disruption back to back, which is GST, which has forced up kind of formalization in the economy, and we are seeing the side effects of that. So
Right.
challenge was there. By that time, Rohan, India has developed a very unprecedented phenomena where India's unemployment growth rate was more than the India's GDP growth rate. And
Yeah.
this has never seen phenomena, which we have mentioned in the book. If you
Yeah.
see the data,
Yeah.
from 2012-13 onwards up to the demonetization,
Yeah.
India's growth rate was India's unemployment growth rate was lesser than India's economic growth rate. And if you compare with the inflation growth at that time, cost of living and speed of earning in India was cost of living was higher, speed of earning was lesser than the GDP.
Yeah.
That has created a structural challenge of rising income. After 2 years, when the COVID hit, before even COVID, why 2000 from 2018 the demand of cars and bikes have started tanking in India? Why the
Yes.
demand of houses started tanking in India from 2018? The reason was that these people, this class, who are just 13 crore people. I always say with the friends that India is a 13 crore economy. This is actually runs on 13 crore people.
And it's
These
in the
13
book also. It's in
these
the book
13
also.
crore, these 13 crore people do everything for that. They pay tax, they invest in the stock market, they buy LIC, they put money into the mutual funds, they buy cars, they buy scooters, they buy mobile phones. All other is just trying to be somewhere in fitting into that. So that 13 crore people have started struggling. Their own balance sheet has started crumbling. Their debts have started rising more than their incomes. If you take them as companies, India has
Yeah.
suddenly become the companies who are losing 7 crore, 8 crore families like companies have started losing. And
Yeah.
then we came into the COVID. So this class, which was actually struggling before that, due to the structural slowdown, has hit maximum hard, and that is the reason we are seeing that right now a very very strange phenomena that
Yeah.
GST collection is rising, but consumption is dwindling.
Right.
So,
So,
so
and
this is
a very common discussion. I mean, अगर आप नुक्कड़ पे भी खड़े हो जाएं आजकल तो यही discussion है that what should we do? Like the FD rates, you have talked about this in the book. The FD rates are like practically, at the lowest. Like I have never seen it this low.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
we
inflation
are
rates are more than that. So you are basically getting zero or negative.
Yes,
So,
yes,
yeah,
and we are reminded about this by YouTubers every day. There are
absolutely.
so many YouTubers, financial YouTubers these days. Also, they want us to kind of invest in the stock market, right?
Right.
And again, they want us to invest in the US stock market also now. So all
Yes.
that is happening. The common man is confused now. What to do?
Yeah.
Whether to sit with the money, where to put it now, because a lot of us are not financially literate.
Right.
So what should the common man do? What because the financial year is starting. What should be the
So,
strategy?
so I think, Rohan, I think, Anshuman heads a channel which deals with this on a day-to-day basis. Let him answer that. I'm sure he's flooded with such questions.
ठीक है
No,
अंशुमन जी
Rohan,
प्लीज हमें बताएं.
Rohan, when you say the common man, actually, again, we are coming into the even 10 crore or 7 crore people out of
हाँ
those 13 crore
Yes.
हाँ
people. So
हाँ
there's
हाँ
6, 7
हाँ
crore people. So all our discussions about the personal finance and financial investments are limited to the 6, 7 crore people, and we think those are common men. The
right.
reality is that the people who are earning less than 20,000 rupees, there's no financial product available for them in the market. This is a reality of India's financial product market,
Right.
and that is so. You'll start talking about the people who have got at least 2,000 to 3,000 to 4,000 rupees surplus, above
हाँ
all paying all their taxes, all their liabilities and fees and everything. They are lucky enough to save 5,000, 6,000 rupees, and from their
yes
whole financial planning and calculation starts that. The
yes
challenge is right now is that India has been divided between two kind of financial saving profiles. One, the people who are looking for safety. They are not looking for high risk returns, and they are the biggest loser in this game, because India has over the year did not evolve the products which can beat inflation, like the inflation protection bonds in America. India has once experimented in 2014-13 when Raghuram Rajan was there. Inflation protection bonds were there. Then suddenly government has changed the inflation formula from WPI to CPI, and then bond got vanished completely, because when you are not
right
benchmarking your inflation protection from WPI to CPI. So right now is that. So first, India's challenge with the financial planning is that Indian government and financial planners did not understand that India is majoritarily a saving-driven economy. It's not a investment-driven economy in the per se of stock market. Indian banks are not lending companies; they are deposit companies. See, 90% people who are putting money in the banks, out of them only 5% take the loan, but
yeah
90% using their money to deposit there. So you will have to see that who's the big class, who is the majority. The majority is suffered because of the high inflation, and they have no inflation protection in that. Over and above, we have clearly mentioned in this book that how since 2013-14, government has deliberately stopped giving any incentives to the savings in terms of the income tax. Look at
right
the TC. Look at the TC. Every budget, every year when the budget comes, people start shouting that TC should have been changed, but it's not changed. The
yes
only last sort of standing post of saving support from the finance bill is at TC. What is the status of that? So government
yes
has deliberately not given money to the people to protect them, and they're not option of the fixed income investment. Only very limited options are there. So they have got very limited option. Then comes the second part of that. 10% people, even right now 5% people.
Hmm.
If you take recently overall investment corpus, the 5% goes into the stock market and mutual fund. So
yeah
those 5% people who can afford to take risk, who can go to the SIP. We all talk about huge about this whole SIP and mutual fund and AUM, but if you see the real size of that corpus, and you see the real size of the corpus lying in the bank and deposits, you'll see these are two different world altogether. There,
right
what has happened is that because government, what Anand said, because our government is broke, so government
yeah
would like to tax everywhere you are earning something.
right
So maximum, earlier the taxation was limited to very few financial products. Now everything you do in the financial market is taxed. So when you
right
put money in the stock market, all those great YouTubers, just ask them to tell me the net to tax return on mutual fund, net to tax return on stock market. If you are in 20% or 30% category, your net to tax return is as good as 6%, 7%, because you're paying huge taxes.
wow
So then the government has started taxing you at everywhere. And this is how I again say that what Robert Kiyosaki says, that they don't want you to get rich. They don't
yes
want to get you rich, because the moment you'll start getting rich, the whole premise will get changed. So moment people have started putting money in the mutual funds, taxation has
Hmm.
came. They will started putting money in stock market, transaction taxes started coming. So this is the way whole investment scenario works. In between, we only see the balance in our accounts. We don't see the
yes
return in our account, and that is our only solace. कि मेरे अकाउंट में साथ 10 लाख रुपया पड़ा हुआ है, पर उस 10 लाख रुपए में हर साल आपको जो इंटरेस्ट मिलता है उस पर भी सरकार टैक्स ले लेती है. So
हाँ
there's a seriously lot of things has to be done if government wants to support that. And most important part, which I've said in this book, I'm not
yeah
clearly remembering the page number, that
Yeah.
India is actually heading for the crisis because India's domestic saving rates has drastically gone down, and now we have not enough domestic saving to finance our fiscal deficit. And this year was the year where India's debt to GDP ratio has already touched 100%. You don't have enough savings in the country who can finance the government fiscal deficit. So what you will
Right.
do that you will have to print more currency. And the moment you
Right.
start printing more currency, you'll be running an inflation, which is what we're seeing that. So India has to support financial savings. India has to support fixed income investment. Either you reduce inflation or give them better returns. There's only
Yeah.
ways. So either
Yeah.
you cut the inflation to 3%, 4%,
Right.
and just 1.5%, 2% return is enough for me. That if my cost of living is actually protected at 4%, or if you're
Yes.
giving me a cost of living of 8%, 9%, please give me 10% return on my bank deposit, because at least all that money you are using,
Yes.
whatever money I'm putting in the banks has been used by the government only. You are
Right.
financing your expenditure. So at least give us the right kind of return to us. This is where the whole problem lies in terms of the financial saving and investment.
Right. So well,
Rohan,
please.
if I just come in for a minute, yeah. So you see, our audience is also basically middle class, right? The same 13 to 15 crore people within that. So
Bilkul.
let me just mention two quick things for them. One, stock market is not for everyone. It's very difficult for you will do a day job, you will take care of your family, everything, and then you will learn stock market and you will actively pursue and all that. What we require for most people, as Anshuman also mentioned, tax
Yes.
incentive and some sort of up to certain limit that this much of fixed income, fixed return scheme, this will work. Go and try to tell your parents, go and try to tell so many others that, don't keep money in FD, go and learn stock market. It's just impossible in a country like
Okay.
India.
Yeah.
This is something I think middle class should realize, that we must need tax incentive for our savings. We must grow our savings, otherwise our future is in peril.
Yeah.
Why I'm saying this, why we must realize, people like you and me and our friends must realize this. Because you see what has happened. You have so many friends abroad, right? Where
Yeah.
do their children go? They go to public school.
Public school.
Save for US. If your friends are in Europe or other countries, where do they go for their medical this thing? Ask anybody in UK, they go to NHS centers, right?
Yeah.
So what has happened in India, Indian middle class pays so much tax, and we have shown in our book that we pay tax as much as any other country.
Yeah.
Yet our expectations have vanished. We
Yeah.
do not expect government to provide schooling to our kids. We do not expect government to provide medical care to us. We do not even expect government to provide security to us. In every housing society, you have security guards. You do not even expect government to provide fresh, clean air. You install a air purifier at your home. So everything you pay tax for has been privatized at your own end, right? So you
Right.
pay double. So this is something which I find very troubling, that our these expectations have gone completely. So in at least in financial matter, we must be very serious and we must start asking for tax incentive and some fixed income product up to
Yeah.
certain limits at least, which will keep our future secure.
Yeah. You talk about in the book, there are in the last portion of the book, there are some suggestions and solutions, which
Right.
I was like, which I was totally I really wanted to go deep into it. You suggest tax holiday for the middle class. I mean, and you have said also that we need at least 9 crore jobs by 2030.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about the solutions and the suggestions. Are they realistic? Can that happen? Looking at what's going on from what we have seen in the past 5 years.
Right. So last line first, that are they realistic? Yes. At the end of that chapter, we have given complete calculation also, that if
Yes.
you cut down some of those expenses at that ratio and do the other things, so it actually matches, right? So we have given that broad calculation also.
Yeah.
So yeah, we feel it's pretty realistic. And why we must do that? As I said, that the India's core crisis is that of employment. Why this 9 crore? Because 6 crore people are going to join your, this rank of people who are, will join the this productive age people. 6 crore who will join Indian economy by 2030, and another 3 crore. We need to shift them out of agriculture. We could not talk much about agriculture, but that is the big problem. Agriculture and self-employment. Why people are in agriculture? Because they have no other opportunity. Why so many people are hawking in the street? Why so many people are into self-employment? because they do not have any other opportunity. They could not get a job. That's why they are into self-employment, right? So at least the agriculture people need to, farmers' sons, daughters, they need to come into non-farming economy. So that is another 3 crores. So unless you provide this 9 crore people jobs, then your economy is not going to grow. You see, economy needs to grow from bottom up. There has to be demand at the bottom. So that is the core premise. So in our understanding, that is the core problem, and that is something we need to sort out. How do we do that? We must encourage some of the export-based industries. We must encourage some more, clusters in which India has some sort of core competency, some sort of advantage, and that we must give why tax incentive. You mentioned about individuals. We also want tax incentive or tax holiday to be given to small entrepreneurs, because it's the small entrepreneurs who provide actually jobs, and large number of jobs in those places, including Uttarakhand, where people are staying. People should not be going to 2,000 kilometers away from their home and work. So to do that, you need to encourage the small entrepreneurs. So through export, through local economy, and that local economy we have given lots of suggestions for that, how to boost local economy. So all these are geared towards what? Geared towards creating those 9 crore jobs. And it's only when there are so many jobs, there will be demand from below, that will expand the market. You see, as we are saying, India is what? 12 to 15 crore middle class people who consume everything. What would happen if out of 130 crore, and what is their aspiration also? They don't want to remain a landless farmer, or they don't want to hawk on the streets. They also want to come into the middle class, right? So it is their aspiration, and it is in the interest of the Indian economy that they become middle class. When they become middle class, they consume more. When they consume more, so every industry they expand. To expand, they put in money, they invest. When they invest, then Indian economy grows. So this is a virtuous cycle. So we must do everything to kickstart that virtuous cycle. So our entire prognosis of the problem and our entire suggestion given in the book is geared towards this. And this is as simple as, which me and you can understand. It is it's not something, very technical, and this is how the economy grows around your house, around my house, around our locality. So this is how our suggestion is based on. So this is why we want to say that all of you must, try to think about it. And our book probably helps you to see these, missing links and connect these dots and think about how to boost your economy and include your economy in the sense your own balance sheet, economy of your locality, and your opportunities. And that's how we can take this economy forward.
Yeah. So, would you like to add to that?
I think Anand has covered a lot of points. I only think said that we have suggested 3-pronged formula into this, and which is a really workable formula. If you talk to anyone, the people like us who are chasing finance news from very sort of beginning as a financial journalist, the challenge is that first most important part is that the unemployment part, which is well explained. The challenge is that, as I say, that there are only 40-45 clusters who are giving maximum jobs in India to the various level of skill sets, ranging from very highly educated to the basic skill set. First thing is that economic planning has to divest it completely to the states. States have to stop all the things, and they'll have to put the people on the cluster ministers. I suggest them. You have to create a minister for every cluster. You'll have to create 3, 4, 5 clusters, like what Delhi government has done. Finally, the good sense prevailed, and they decided that no, why should I invest? Puts a lot of schemes for inviting industry in Delhi. Who is coming to put a factory in Delhi when there are a lot of pollution things? So they said that in Delhi is a trading economy. We will try to put maximum resources into trading and promote the trading. We'll create fair and those things. Why they are doing is that because they've realized that this is our only economic strength. People are spending here. So first thing is that you'll have to understand government can very easily do that, rather than creating a huge make in India shows and inviting those 100 industrialists and expecting them to invest in every nook and corner of the country. You see all the make in India melas, 100 industrialists are everywhere, and they commit to invest everywhere. You check the balance sheet. How can Mukesh Ambani invest in Jharkhand and Haryana and Uttar Pradesh, in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka? You must understand his business profile. How can Adani invest? But those 120 industrialists are everywhere, and they are expected to invest everywhere in the country, and they don't invest because they only invest where they look further synergies. So this is all the whole things have to turn upside down and start thinking the people who are investing in the local economy. So A lot of migration which is taking place from the rural areas to urban areas may not need to come to the Delhi. They could work into Ranchi, they could work into say Bhubaneswar, create those clusters, and those clusters can feed on the local economies. They are not required to be very huge clusters. If you can create products for local economies and invest that, they can survive that. So this is one strategy which is there, and this strategy has been worked very well during 2008-9 when the recession came in the USA. There was a campaign called as an invest $100 in local economy. There was a campaign was there. Put $100 in local economy and get the return of that. So this is local economy part which is there, which could be done with the policy intervention. Second part which we have suggested is about that you cannot, either you will have to increase consumption domestically, or you will have to ride upon the growing consumption globally. There's only ways, two ways. So if your consumption class is confined to only 13 crore people, which is reduced to now 9 crore after the COVID, because a lot of middle class has been pushed back into the poverty, you will have to produce for globe, where people are having paycheck protections, people are having their energy bill cut by the Rishi Sunak recently after gas prices have gone up and they have been paid their statutory dues paid by the budget, because they are printing currencies and they're giving money to their people. Their consumptions are rising, the pent up demands are coming up. So you'll have to produce for them. Thank God, after a withdrawal from the RCEP, good sense prevails. India has back to back done 2 FTAs in just 15 days. 15 days. One is with the Emirat, and second with the Australia, which is signed day before yesterday. Now they have realized that you will have to create FTAs. If you want to export, you'll have to open your markets, and then only you can get into the other market. So this is one strategy we have elaborated and detailed in data, that why India has to create to open up its economy, do the FTAs, go to the part of every trade deal in the world, so that you can get opportunity for jobs, opportunity for there. And third, we have seen that despite doing all this, there will be a good chunk of 30 crore, 25 crore people who will be suffering, who will be always be suffering for something. For them, you'll have to create a universal pension, you'll have to create universal income, universal education, those things. And for that plan, how the money will come, we have given all the hisab into the book, that how you can generate the money and get and distribute it to them. So not a rocket science. We tried to make this book should not be seen as a very sort of confidential mathematics. It is a very basic mathematics, which anyone who can understand the basic economics of public finance can do it. The reason is that we understand it. Probably you can understand it. After reading this, a lot of people may understand it, that the people who actually they should understand it and implement it, they won't understand. They won't understand because they are. And last thing, which what Anand has suggested, which I would like to specifically mention right now here. See, India has actually grown from a market economy to business economy, and which is very dangerous. In market economy, power actually takes the economic opportunities hand of the few businesses and give it to the open market. But in the business economy, what happens is that the power and authority and governments take the economic opportunity from the market and gives in the hands of the few businesses. This is what we are seeing in Russia. How Eltsin has created a privatization which has generated a new generation of oligarchs, and now the Russian economy is controlled by 100 people. Everything in Russia, from the telephone to aluminium to gas to oil, is run by 100 oligarchs. The same thing has happened in Venezuela. Same thing has happened in Egypt. Same thing has happened in other countries where economic reforms has came, but they could not create a viable, workable, open market economy. So first you open that, then disruptions came, then a slowdown came, and this is what happened is that in 2008, India has got 35 telecom operators. In 2022, we've got only two telecom operators. So this is where this is where the government's pragmatism, their intervention to the market, creating right kind of competition is very much required, because more monopolies, more inflation, and lesser jobs. And now we are struggling with it. You cannot do anything. Airtel can increase the price and openly say that we are going to increase price twice in a year. Very clearly they are saying that, because they are not seeing your mobile budgets. They are seeing their ARPU should reach to 300 by the end of the financial year. So this is the whole idea, where I think this monopoly part has to be taken care of, that and discussed widely on all the forums, so that government should listen and react upon it.
Okay, a huge question, that whether the government will listen, because the monopolies are increasing by the day. You name the IT sector. I mean, let's not go towards Meta and all those things, because again, it's another discussion, and there are so many monopolies, and it affects us directly. And also one more thing which we missed out on. You have mentioned on page 26 that MSME is a misnomer, and MSME is supposed to drive the sort of the growth of the country. Why is it MSME a misnomer? And this is my final question before we get some book recommendations from you.
I think Anand will say, yeah.
Sure.
Okay, very quickly, that MSME is a misnomer because most of the MSMEs are, just registered in name. That guy who owns it, he has no premise, he has no employee, he has no, finance. So he is there because he has no other opportunity. So out of, I think, I don't have the figures right now in front of me, but, we have something like 6 crore or few crores registered. Out of that, maybe 30,000 or 40,000, companies, they have, serious number of employees, more than say 20 employees. So those are viable businesses.
Right.
So it's MSME is just a catch-all term. It doesn't mean anything. They're basically self-employed. They're self-employed because there's no other opportunity. And, it is those small guys, they should grow big. And that's how the economy is sustained everywhere. It's not that, 100 companies which run the economy. You mentioned about the monopolies. Let me just very quickly tell you. You ask anybody around you, which products you use, which cooking oil, which car company, which taxi booking app. Everywhere it's 2 to 3 companies. If you want to fly from Dehradun to where I am in Jaipur, you will have only 2 airline choices. You get down at Jaipur airport, you will have 2 taxi services. You go and buy something as basic as baby food. One company dominates 97% of the market. Can you imagine? And this is supposed to be an open market economy. You tell me a product where, here you can buy at least 4 or 5 cars from 4 or 5 companies. You can buy chocolates only from 2 companies, essentially. So, this is how this economy is done. We opened up, before 1991, everything was in the government's hand. We opened up. Why? Because we wanted competition to grow. We wanted everybody to come in. Why everybody to come in? So that we get best products, best services at the cheapest rate. What has happened is that a few guys have captured it. So you don't get best products. You have nowhere else to go. Airtel can double the rate. Still, you have to stick to Airtel, or you can go to another company, which will also double the rate because you have only 2 choices. And this is what is repeated everywhere, in every sphere of the Indian economy. And this is the problem you and me are stuck with. Yeah.
Anshuman ji, this is so basic, and it is so basic. Anybody can understand. ये तो बिल्कुल मतलब सबके समझ में आता है. But the question is,
कितने लोगों को आपने बात करते हुए सुना इसके बारे में?
You show me 100 tweets, Rohan, on it. You show me 100 Facebook posts on it. You show me even 50 plus Facebook posts on this monopoly phenomena. People don't even know that their monthly expenditure, their 90% monthly expenditure is going to 25 companies. 25 companies are taking on 90% monthly expenditure. They don't know that, and this is where the whole our economic understanding has to drastically change and see that why it is happening, what is happening. Coming on the MSME part is that what Anand was referring is that the challenge why MSME is now misnomer because 96% enterprises in India who are registered under the ASI survey, which is an annual enterprise survey which takes place, are having less than 5 employees. And this is the reason we have made this big bold statement that self-employment is a pseudo-unemployment in India. Self-employment is what? 600 rupees, 500 rupees, hawker is a street vendor is a self-employed person, and you call them self-employment because that's a pseudo-unemployment. And you call them MSME and you ask them to give the jobs. How can they give the job? Just one lockdown comes and they close. They all go from their shops, panwala shops, to selling the fruits and finally becoming a Manrega Majdoor in next 3 to 4 months. So this is where the whole MSME. The challenge is that we don't need MSMEs. We need mid-sized companies in India.
Right.
India requires and we have given a detail that how the middle size of companies are missed in India. Either you find the companies who are over 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 crore rupees turnover, I will find these small, very small self-employed. They cannot give the jobs. They cannot sustain even the 65 days of payment cycle. अगर उनका पेमेंट भी 15 दिन नहीं आता है पीछे से, तो उनकी दुकान बंद हो जाएगी. उनके सप्लाई. इंडिया में एवरेज पेमेंट साइकिल 30 days का है, MSMEs के लिए 65 days का. So they cannot sustain it to that. We need lot and lot of middle companies, mid-sized companies who can employ at least 50 to 100 people. From there, the jobs will come. And this is where the monopoly things has come, that due to COVID disruption, you have find that how the series of smaller brands and local brands has been gobbled up by these big companies.
Yeah.
All the masala brands, all the cosmetics brands, all the look at the new discussion of the MDH is getting taken over by HUL. All the smaller brands, even the startup has been, because they cannot survive with the disruptions. They don't have money. While the bigger brands have got a lot of money, and this is the reason where the mid-size. Luckily, we have seen some mid-size companies coming from the startups. Before COVID. After COVID, 70-80% of startups are closed down or they have been taken over by the big companies. So again, this new mid-size economy which has emerged has been vanished.
And the startups that are growing big and are again creating monopolies.
Look at Byju's.
The biggest monopoly.
How Byju's has started, because they've got a lot of money, so they don't allow any smaller education company to grow. And this is where we need that. Byju's will become huge, and now they become international. They have been a sponsor of part of the sponsor of FIFA World Cup.
Okay, I really wanted to show everyone how, there are so many illustrations also. Who has done the illustrations? I missed the name. मैंने पढ़ा था शुरू में book के.
There's a graphic designer Asit Roy. He has done illustrations for us.
तो ये illustration से बहुत आसान हो जाता है समझना क्या चल रहा है. Although the text, obviously you have to read, guys. मतलब ये तो Booknerds है, तो you have to read, But the graphics also help you a lot for those who are reading a sort of book on economy and finance. For the first time, थोड़ा graphics देख के पढ़ोगे तो और आसान हो जाएगा. So that is something which is good about the book. It doesn't get, because sometimes people can leave books within 25-30 pages के बाद ना वो छोड़ देते हैं, तो वो नहीं होगा अगर graphics भी रहती है. Thank you so much for that, both of you. Also, final very quick book recommendations other than this one. Countdown तो पढ़ना ही है सबने. You guys have to buy it. All the book lovers who are watching this and will watch it in the future. दो book recommendations which you found worth reading in 2022 perhaps. Anindya, would you like to go first?
Yeah, tough one. I was all the time focused on Countdown and I did not think of other books.
So Countdown will be there. We'll come back to you. We'll go to Anshuman ji and then we'll come back.
It is no, it's not easy because I read a lot. You can see the kind of library I almost read I read 2 books per week. So my before this putting the laptop, I have cleaned up this table and put a lot of book upstairs. Right now I'm reading this Aniruddha Kanishetty's book, that Lords of the Deccan. I'm reading right now. Vaclav Ismail's book From the Microorganisms to Micro Cities, which I've just completed. Daniel Ergin book is there. There's a very good book called New Map, Energy, Climate, and the Clash of Nations. So you can name it. A lot of books are there. Recently, I've got a book. I've got a recently.
हम लोग एक list by Anshuman Tiwari होनी चाहिए कि ये वाला.
I read because every other day, and I read like food. So I read a lot. So this is the way most of the books I've read. I've just got a book, Seeing Like a State. This is a Yale University professor who's written a wonderful book that why policies fail, why policies succeed. This is a kind of next generation book to the Why Nations Fail, which Daron Acemoglu has written. That I've just got today when I came back, so I've got it in my reception. So I picked up. So a lot of books are there. You can.
So now, sir, what I'll do is I'll tell everyone that कि जब आपको book budget बनाना है अपना, तो उसके ऊपर भी वीडियो मनी 9 पे वो आना चाहिए. मतलब बुक बजट कैसे बनाए वो भी एक होना चाहिए. Anindya, any recommendation?
Right. So since he has mentioned, I think more than 2 books, so let me tell you something different, but connected to this.
Yes.
I want to mention 2 things. One is that we are discussing Countdown, which is the English book, or the Hindi book called Ulti Ginti, published by Raj Kamal, that had come out before this. Just before this, and I think there are a lot of people, particularly in Hindi and other regional languages, they don't get to read economics or such subjects in Hindi or other languages.
Yeah.
So I think that's something very important. I would be very, I think Anshuman has Ulti Ginti right in front of him.
हाँ
I
वो
also have
एक्चुअली
some,
हमारा
yeah.
वो वेरी गुड, क्योंकि ना हमारा बुकनर्ड्स हिंदी भी है, तो हम
Okay.
वहाँ पे
Yeah.
इसको पोस्ट कर देंगे और वहाँ पे जो रीडर्स है
Because
जो सुनते हैं,
Rohan, that is very important that you see the most people don't read in English. If you see the
Yes.
entire Indian
Yes.
universe, they do not have access to the kind of books Anshuman had just mentioned. So Ulti Ginti, I think, is very important. The other thing, let me mention, which is, I won't take a name of a book, but generally,
Right.
you know, because of some circumstances, I'm sort of forced to compel to edit a book on pioneering
Okay.
Bengali women. Right now,
Okay.
I'm working on that. So it's a collection of essays. And,
Okay.
you know, what we don't realize, because again, this is something which has not been written in English. So
Yeah.
this is about a series of Bengali women between 1870 and 1940, 1945, who did pioneering things like becoming first doctor, you know, first lawyer,
Right.
and, you know, starting educational institutes,
Yeah.
writing books, publishing, you know. There's a lady who in 1860s was writing article on science, popular science in Bengali. And she read
Wow.
all the, you know, available textbooks there. Around, say, 1890s, she was writing something like what you read today about Darwin and evolution and all those things.
Mhm.
So when I see those things, and these are the material available mostly in Bengali, so the access is limited. But
Yeah.
when you see that, you realize these are the people who are at the forefront globally also. Yet they are not even mentioned in India.
Yeah.
They're totally forgotten even in Bengal. So I mean, we like to think that we are very global, we are very modern, etc. But you know, there are a lot of hidden histories, hidden text, hidden achievements in all our regional languages. You will not get access so easily if you're just an English reader. So I'll be very glad if Booknerd also does something like this. Also, Booknerd readers, they start exploring such sources. You know, I cannot tell you how inspired I feel when I read about a Bengali woman who fought all sorts of challenges to become a doctor in 1880s or 1890s. And even after becoming doctors, they could not practice. They had to face such obstacles.
I
A
know.
Bengali woman scientist. Today, a star is named after her. It's a rare honor for any individual scientist anywhere in the world. And she's the only woman scientist after whom a star is named. Nobody around me could name that lady. And I can tell you, Viva Chaudhary, who was an astrophysicist in 1940s, she's you know, and she kept on working till 1990s. She's recognized
Wow.
abroad, forgotten in India. So we must, you know, go beyond our English sources. We must
Sure.
read more. We must interact more
Yeah.
and feel more inspired. So
And
thank you very
I'm
much, Rohan.
inspired actually. I'm actually inspired because the three of our team members are from West Bengal, from
Okay.
Kolkata, and so no, we Booknerds Bangla तो होना चाहिए. You know, Hindi तो है, लेकिन बांग्ला भी होना चाहिए.
Any day, I would love to interact with them and will love
Sure.
to talk with them and, you know, do something. So
Thank you so much for being here, guys. काउंटडाउन तो है ही, और उल्टी गिनती सर अगर आप दिखा दें तो उल्टी गिनती भी पढ़नी है. जो बुकनर्स हिंदी वाले हैं उस पे भी जाएगा मोस्ट प्रोबेबली, ये पोस्ट हम कर देंगे. और बुक उल्टी गिनती आप हिंदी में भी पढ़ सकते हो, सेम बुक. और फिर बताइएगा अमेज़न पे कि कैसी लगी, क्या आपको फील हुआ, डिड यू गेट इंस्पायर्ड, डिड यू लर्न, डिड यू फील दैट इट वाज एजुकेशनल. लेट अस नो. फीडबैक इज ऑलवेज इम्पोर्टेंट. बहुत सारी बुक्स और भी आने वाली है मेरे ख्याल में इस जोड़ी से, सो होपिंग फॉर मोर. Thank you so much.
Feel free to send your questions, queries. I am on the Twitter and Facebook. You can get my Twitter handle anywhere, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have from the book and around you.
सर मैं एक ट्वीट से बहुत परेशान हूँ आपके, मतलब हर रोज 80 पैसे बढ़ जाते हैं तो उसी से परेशान हूँ. So that is becoming a joke, you know. You get up and 80 paise is on your notification. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rohan. Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.